Thanks for joining me. This is Danny, and welcome to my Real Tech series. Today we are going to be getting started with Immersive Engineering. We're going to do some passive RF generation. We're going to run some wires around the place and probably get some nice mob control and lighting and such in our little town here. And if we have time, we're going to get started on ore doubling. If not, we'll do that in the next episode. The first thing that we're going to want to do when we get started with Immersive Engineering is to make ourselves the coke oven and the blast furnace. So the coke oven and the blast furnace are going to allow us to make steel and treated wood, which are going to be required for nearly everything that we want to do with Immersive Engineering. So we are going to be... Oh, it's very echoey in here. We're going to fill this place up. Maybe it won't be so echoey when we're done. So you might already know that Immersive Engineering is a tech mod that has lots of multi-block machines. The coke oven and the blast furnace are probably the least interesting of the multi-block machines because they are just... boy, this is giving me block lag. I don't know why. Because they are just a great big square. 3x3x3 square. So we needed 27 of these coke bricks in order to make the coke oven. And which means we needed 36 clay, 36 bricks, and 9 sandstone, because each of these sets makes 3. And that is it. So then we take our engineer's hammer, we right click, and we get our coke oven. Hooray! So the coke oven, basically all we do is we give this guy coal, and it gives us coal coke, and it produces creosote oil, which we can then use to craft treated wood. And then for the blast furnace, we are going to need 36 each of brick and nether brick, and then 9 blaze rods in order to make 27 blast bricks. And that's the exact same process, and I'm just going to do that over here. Wow. I wonder if this thing... I think that thing is causing block lag for me. Yep. Yeah, that was it. This is the crude blast furnace. Really hot topic. Spring at last. The snow is melting, the ice is melting. It's finally spring. Now that we have this, I'm going to throw a stack of coal in here. So with a stack of coal and a stack of iron, we can make a stack of steel. So we're going to take this guy. Oh, you know what? This guy is going to output pollution. We're going to have to get a chimney in here to handle that. And then I'm going to put the iron here, and we're going to use coal coke, which is the product of our coke oven, in order to burn our iron, and that will make us steel. You can only work with this through the GUI. There is no input output. You can't hopper into it or out of it or anything. Later we will get an upgrade that will allow us to do that. Boy, one of these is producing a lot of heat, probably this guy. This guy we can input output though. Oh boy. Yeah, we're going to have to do something about that. Now in this pack we have pollution in the realms. The coke oven does produce quite a bit of pollution, and if it doesn't have anywhere to put the pollution, it will blow up. So as you can see, we've already produced a fair amount of pollution, so I'm going to have to do something about that. Yeah, as you can see, it's quite slow. It's only gotten this far. It hasn't even made its first piece of coal yet, and it's already produced that much pollution. Okay, so there's our first piece of coal coke. Hooray! So I'm going to take the coal coke and I'm going to put it in here. And that's going to burn 1 piece of iron. So this is the funnest part of Immersive Engineering. Waiting. Woohoo! So this part is slow. And there really isn't much we can do until we get a fair amount of creosote oil and steel. We've gotten 2 pieces of steel so far. We also got 2 slag. The slag is mostly a waste product, and we have to have a way of getting it out of here. I mean, obviously for now that just means pulling it out manually. But we can use it to make concrete, or asphalt concrete from Immersive Petroleum. And that's it. That's really the only use for slag. Oh, unless we can find a structural engineering, which would be really, really nice. So yeah, I'm just pulling this coal coke out manually. I'm putting it in the blast furnace, and that's just how this works now. So the beginning part of Immersive Engineering, it starts out a little slow. It's maybe a little bit boring at first, but once we get the materials we need, we can start automating things and making things go a little bit faster. So in the meantime, I am also growing some of this industrial hemp. That's another kind of basic resource that we're going to need a fair amount of. Industrial hemp basically gives us this industrial hemp fiber. And the first thing we'll be doing with it is making a windmill. That's going to be one of our first power generation is going to be windmills. I actually also have one of our mine factory, or I also have one of our mine colonies farmers doing some industrial hemp as well. I've actually been growing this stuff since the beginning because we can get string from this. It's a really good source for string early game because the industrial hemp, once it takes, it grows pretty fast. So it takes a while for it to get this first stem, but then as you saw, it grows too high. And if you only break the top part of it and you leave the bottom part mature, it'll actually grow pretty quickly. And you can, if we don't break it like I accidentally did there, we can actually get quite a bit of industrial hemp from this pretty quickly. Well, this creosote is very important and useful. We are going to end up with a lot of it and probably way more than we need. And if it fills up our coke oven, it is going to stop the coke oven from working. It won't be able to produce anything more if it doesn't have room to put creosote oil. So we're going to pump it out of there. I'm going to use this fluid pump from Immersive Engineering. It looks like this. And like everything with Immersive Engineering, you have to specify the input. Well, like most things with Immersive Engineering, you have to specify the input and output. So blue is input, I believe. Yellow is output. And if you hold down shift, it'll do the opposite side. So what we're going to do is, actually, let me look at the bottom is input by default. So we want to input into this pump and then output to a tank. So actually, I'm going to put the pump back here. And I'm going to shift right click on it so that the other side is going to be blue. Blue for input. And then on this side, I'm going to output. And I'm going to put I have a mod called Simple Fluid Tanks, which basically just allows us to create these multi-block tanks. I'm hoping that it's going to be compatible with this. So then we hit that with a wrench. I don't know if this will work. I have to think. Oh, okay, that did work. All right, cool. I wasn't sure if I had to make the wrench for this mod or not. So in order to extract from something that doesn't automatically output, we do need to give this guy a redstone signal, which everybody always forgets that. And I always, when I'm watching other people, I'm always like, don't forget about the redstone signal, but then I forgot myself. So yay. So I pulled the fluids out, and if we look in this tank, we see we have 32. Oh, it has a capacity of 32 buckets. It doesn't tell us how much is in there. Oh, it does here. Okay. 8 out of 128 buckets. Okay. So each one of these blocks gives us 32 buckets of storage. And this is 120. Okay, cool. So that's where our creosote's going to go. Now the creosote oil, we can grab a bucket of this. And we have to, for this mod, we have to right click on the valve. And we can put that together with some wood, any planks, and we get treated wood. Nice. Treated wood is very useful with Immersive Engineering. It's also a really nice looking wood. I actually tend to use this for building a lot. So I end up having to create a bunch of creosote oil. But yeah, it's a nice wood, and it's used for lots of things, including one of our first RF projects, which is going to be the water mill. We got our first 18 steel ingots, and I'm going to use 3 steel ingots and 48 treated wood in order to make 3 water wheels. There is our 3 water wheels. Hooray! And then we are also, so the water wheels, basically, you've probably seen them before. You put water on them, and the water flows around them, and that causes them to turn, which can produce RF if we hook them up to a kinetic dynamo. That's this guy. So we're going to need some iron and a bunch of copper. I made 2 kinetic dynamos. We're going to use one for our water wheels, and then we're going to use one for a windmill that we're going to make later. So I'm thinking I'm just going to put the water wheels up against this machine. I mean, up against this building. Unless we could make it look realistic and have it down by the water. But I think I'll just do it up here for simplicity. And I might actually have the dynamo go into the building. So like maybe I'll break a block here and do that. So that way we can access the dynamo from inside. All right, and then we can just place these guys just like that. We need to dig this out, and now we need to route the water around it. All right, I built a frame around this so that we can get the water running through it. And of course the idea is that we want flowing water to be touching as much of the wheels as possible. And we want it, of course, all to be flowing in one direction and heading, you know, whatever. So I've got it set up so that we can put water sources right here. So in these 3 spots, I think I can reach that from here. Yeah. So that's the first one, and that's going to get it starting to turn a little bit. And as we can see, it's going to run over it, and then it's going to hit that down there, and then the next block is 1 block lower, so that's going to cause the water to flow that way. And then at the back, I've got it going down 1 block lower again in order to keep the flow going. Just because of, you know, vanilla water mechanics. So right now it's moving at that speed. Now it's going to go a little bit faster. And then now it's going to go faster still. Now with this setup right here, with this amount of water, it's going to be producing about 75 RF per tick. So each one of the wheels is going to be giving us 25 RF per tick. There are some ways to give you a little bit more than that. But not much. You're not going to get much more than 75 RF per tick. It used to be the case that you could put water down here in these 3 blocks, and that would give you a little bit of extra RF. That no longer seems to be the case. And then there was also a thing where you could put 3 extra ones down here, and that didn't seem to help either. Now, it's possible that if we have water over here and we block it so that it's going in that direction, and maybe another one down here that's going in this direction, it might add a little bit of RF per tick. I'm not going to do that because it's trivial. It's such a small amount of RF per tick, and it would kind of mess up the looks of my build here. So I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it just like this, and then we got a water wheel next to our factory, which, you know, is kind of interesting, right? So now on the inside we have our kinetic dynamo in here, so we can start pulling power from this. Now since this is passive power, we don't have to worry about pumping this thing with power. We don't have to worry about pollution. Now, speaking of pollution, if you do have Pollution of the Realms installed in your pack, like I do in Realtek, or if you're playing the Realtek pack, be aware that these guys produce a lot of pollution, like more than a regular furnace. Now, I had a stack of coal in here, and we're down to 5, and we've done 33 steel ingots. Let's take a look at the sky. That is just from this one set of things. So it's producing quite a bit of pollution, and I probably should have put filters on my chimney so that it would absorb the sulfur, because that's going to cause me some problems later. We haven't really done any dealing with pollution yet in this series. We are going to be soon. We're definitely going to have to start thinking about how we're going to manage pollution, because we're going to start having some problems here. Now, the other thing, too, to note is that there are 2 types of emissions that both of these will put out. There's the carbon emissions and the sulfur emissions. Sometimes it will output both at the same time, in which case having a single chimney will not catch them both. So that's why we have a few floating in here. I'm okay with that right now. I'm just going to use my little vacuum. I have a pollution vacuum tube and vacuum bag. We'll look into that later. At some point, we're going to probably spend an entire episode just looking at pollution and ways to manage it and ways to clean it up, and like the nasty things that can happen to you when there's too much pollution. I only have a single chimney going out of each one of these, and it's going through this floor and out. So that's taking care of like 99% of the pollution. But every once in a while, we're going to have some in here. To solve that problem, all we have to do is have 2 chimneys sticking out of there. That's easy. So before we start transferring power and storing it and all that stuff, I am going to make the windmill. And that just requires 8 of these windmill blades, which each requires actually 4 treated wood. So that's 32 treated wood altogether, which amounts to 4 buckets of creosote and 32 wood. And then we just need 1 iron ingot, and that makes the windmill. And I am going to put this thing, I think I'm going to put this on the top, like at the front of the building. But I'm going to need something to put it on. So I think I'm going to make myself some posts. Well, may as well make the wooden posts. So treated wood again. Oh, crap. We have slabs there. I'll have to put another slab there. Okay, so if we put the kinetic dynamo on top of this, we can actually climb these things. They're not always easy to climb, though. But anyway, we can put the kinetic dynamo on top of this. It's going to be really tall, though. Oh, you know what? I have another one of these here. I mean, the windmill is actually quite large, so we may have to go with 2 of them. We'll see how this looks. 2 posts, I mean. Hammer, I'm going to rotate that so the circle is facing that way. Ow. And then I'm going to take the windmill and stick it up there. Okay. That might not be too bad. Now, the higher up we put it, the more RF it's going to generate. But honestly, these things don't generate that much RF. So, I don't know that it's really worth going through all the trouble of going up really high. Mostly it's for looks. Now, the problem is it's not centered, so I might actually do 2 of them. Put one on that side and one on that side. Because it looks a little silly. Now we're going to upgrade that. That is just the first tier windmill. There we go. Got our 2 windmills up there. Now we're going to start playing with power transfer and storage. But before we do, I want to do a little testing. So there's 3 tiers of power transfer and storage. There's low voltage, medium voltage, and high voltage. We are going to be dealing exclusively with low voltage today, but if you want to know the difference, you can look in the engineer manual. It's basically all about how much throughput they can handle and how much they can store. So you can see here that, we have connectors and we have wires. Actually, I still need to make some wires. And the low voltage connectors can each handle 256 RF per tick, medium 1024, and high is 4096. Now for the wires, the low voltage can handle 2048 and 8192, and then 32768 for the high voltage. So we've got connectors, we've got relays, we have wires, and we have capacitors. The capacitor, of course, is going to store power, and the connector is what is going to either pull or push power. That's connects 2 things. The relay is basically something that we can use to connect wires to go from one place to the other, and it doesn't insert power into anything or extract power from anything. It just allows you to move power from one place to another. The connectors have the limit of 256. The relays don't have a limit at all necessarily. They just have whatever limit their wire has. So each connector can have 1 wire connecting to it, and only 1 wire. And each relay can have as many as we want. So if we, for instance, this is temporary, I'm just putting this here for now. If we, for instance, want to get power into this capacitor bank from these windmills, we're not going to be able to do this. I mean, that'll get us 1, but then we're not going to be able to go from here to here because we can't attach a wire to this because it's already attached. So what we'll have to do is use a relay in between. So actually we do still want the connector on there, but we're going to have a relay set up somewhere. I'll just put it there for now. And what we would do is we would connect our wires from there to there, and then from there to there. And then from... Oh, yes, the wires do hurt when you touch them. Because they're not insulated, we can insulate these later. And then from there to there. So now they are both hooked up. We can also use this wire cutters, the cutters that we use to make the wires. We can use that to disconnect the wires without having to break the connectors. And we can see we got 5.9 kilo RF. Actually, before we do this, there's something there's something I want to do. And they do ignore armor as well, because you're getting electrocuted. So, your armor isn't going to protect you from electrocution. So, yeah, there's that. This is an energy valve from Automated Redstone. I just want to use this to see how much power we're generating here. Actually, I'm going to move this back a little bit. I'm going to put this thing here. I'm going to face it this way. Ow. We're going to need, oh, I'm going to need another connector. We're going to need a connector going into it, and then a connector going out of it. We do have to use connectors here because we want to actually pass the stuff through there. And then we also would need a connector there. And we're going to need an LED display above this guy. This is from the automated redstone mod. And we want to set this to measure the energy flow, not limit it. We want it to measure it. And then we're going to put this on the top because that's blue. We could also hit this thing with a engineer's hammer, just like everything else, and set that to blue to go in. And then we'll put another wire here. And then we'll see that we are, we are producing, oh my gosh, really 11 RF, 11 RF per tick. Now, I'm actually going to disconnect this because I don't want this thing to fill up yet, because we're going to upgrade these things and then we'll see how much RF we're then producing. So this is what we needed the industrial hemp for. We actually only need to make 12 of these. And that is going to make 2 windmill sails. So these are upgrades to the windmill. We apply sails to the windmill and it will allow them to catch more air, which will make them spin faster, which will cause them to generate more RF, because that's how the kinetic dynamo works. The more faster it spins, the faster it spins, the more RF it generates. So, oh, actually we need way more of these. We need way more of these. Okay, so we need 1 per blade. 1, 2, 3. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we need 16 of these altogether. So yeah, I thought we needed more than that. So that's why we needed so much of this industrial hemp. So we've got, actually, let me put 1 blade on each and we'll see how much of a difference that makes. Oh, wait, we click on that. Okay. And then I'm going to make the rest of them and we'll see what a difference that makes. So I'm going to have my wire cutters ready and our LV wire coil. So we are now producing 14 RF per tick. Hooray! All right, I got it. So each windmill is going to require about 384 hemp fiber in order to upgrade. So that one is fully upgraded. Ow, ow. And so is that one. Hooray! Oh, whoops. So you can see they're spinning faster. So let's see how much RF they're producing for us now. 34. So just in case you didn't believe me about the watermill, this is coming from the watermill. Ta-da! 75 RF per tick. I've got the wires running from the windmills coming down to the side of the building, and then it's going into this block. So check this out. You can run power through a block by putting a connector on each side, like so. So now I'll put another connector over here on that block. And then what you got to do is hit it with a hammer. And then what it does, you can see the lighting kind of got a little glitchy there, but that's because it basically produced a multi-block structure here with just the 2 connectors and then just some block in the middle. And you can do this with just about any block. In fact, I haven't seen one yet that you can't. And then we can connect to here, and you can see that this thing is now getting RF now from our windmill. Here's the wiring through here. As you can see, I'm using relays. Relays, again, do not input-output, but we can have multiple connections, so that's what we use to string things together. And I just have this running down here so that it's not very visible from down there. Again, I have uninsulated wires. They're hurting me. I'm not going to insulate these wires up here probably because we're not really going to come up here much, so I'm not terribly worried about having uninsulated wires. And then there's no way to get it around this corner like without going through that block, so I put up this little wall mount. There's these wooden wall mounts. They're the same as the wooden posts, basically. They're made from the treated wood planks, but you can put them on walls, and then you can hit them with a wrench to turn them in different directions. And then I have that going to this one, and then down into the wall, as we saw. Well, here's some insulated wires. Again, we need the tough fabric, which of course requires the industrial hemp fiber. The insulated coils are just like the other ones, except that they don't hurt us when we touch them. So that's what I'm going to use on the inside of the building, so that way they don't hurt us when we touch them. So here we've got power coming in from our watermill, and this is power coming in from our windmills. That's going into our energy valve. and then to our thing. So we are only bringing in 30. Why are we only bringing in 30? Okay, so it's 74 from just the water mill. And then it goes down to 30. That can't be right. I think there's an error there. Well, I seem to have run into a bug. It seems that if I have more than one source of power on the same, like within the same line of cables, it limits it to whatever the lowest power source was. So each of these is actually producing 30 RF per tick, or somewhere thereabouts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have each power source go into a power cell, or into a connector going into a power cell. So I have a power cell up here, so we'll just have another power buffer up here, which is fine. And then I'm going to come out of this. Oh, actually, I need to change this side to output, which is orange. So I have to click it twice, and we're going to do that. And so now we should be bringing in about 30 RF per tick, or 60 RF per tick from there, and we'll have a buffer. So this thing will get filled up, and then when we need a lot of RF at once, we'll be able to pull 256 per tick from there. So actually, we can test that right now. If we see, we are pulling, well, 241, so there must be a little bit of loss there. Eventually, that'll drop down to about 60. Well, actually, it'll drop down to 0 because now that's empty. I'm not actually going to use this. This was just temporary so that we can see what's going on. I'm going to move this guy over here. Actually, I'll just put it right there. And put a connector there, and we'll do an input over here. So we'll be inputting on this, we'll be inputting on two sides. So one will be coming from here. Actually, let's just cut that wire. Going into the cell, and then one will be coming from there. So now we should be getting our full RF coming in. So we're not going to have enough time today to do ore doubling, but there's two more things I want to do. I want to take a look at another passive generation. And I want to set up some lanterns and power lines out here, running all the way through our little colony, so that we will be able to tap into power no matter where we are, and we're going to have some mob control without having to spam our entire place with lighting. Need more copper. I found this azurite mine, or cluster. Lots and lots and lots of copper. Using a lot of copper for especially the early game, because the low voltage stuff all requires copper. And I'm about to make one more type of power, and that is the Thermoelectric Generator. That's going to be another passive power generation, which is great because that means obviously it doesn't require any resources. The windmills, the water mills, the Thermoelectric Generator, once you set them up, they just continue to produce power without giving them anything. And they also don't produce pollution, which in this pack is kind of important. Okay, I've got the Thermoelectric Generator. I needed to make some constantan, which is nickel and copper. You can do it in the Tinker Smeltery, or you can use the alloy kiln from Immersive Engineering. We don't have one yet. We have a smeltery, so I just use that. I made a hole down here already for it. So the way the Thermoelectric Generator works... Uh-oh, I have to break that. Is water going to pour in here? It is. It generates RF based on the difference between the temperatures on either side of it. So we can put, for instance, a magma block over here and a block of ice over here, and it'll generate RF based on that. So then we can do the same here, and then I'm going to just put this block back. So we have a magma, or we have that block over there. I'm going to put a magma block over here. Oh, that was dumb now. How am I going to get out of here? So now this guy's generating a certain amount of RF. Now these aren't the best materials that we could use for this. If we look in our engineer's manual, I mean, those are just materials I happen to have on hand. If we look under Thermoelectric Generator, which is under powers, wiring, and generators, as you might guess, it'll tell us some of the materials that we can use and their temperatures. So in this pack, we have obviously the vanilla packed ice, magma blocks, And then we also have blocks of uranium, which we actually get from autunite with geolysis. I don't have any of that on hand, and I don't have any packed ice either. So we're just using these. And of course, we're then just going to do the same thing again with this. Now, if I had made a bunch of these, which I probably will at some point in the future, but I'm just making one for now for demonstration purposes. We really have more than enough RF to do what we want to do in the very near future. But we could put another one here, and then we would just need to put ice there and there, so we can end up getting double duty on out of these. We can put lava there too, or just basically anything hot, and the hotter it is. I lost that ice over there. Oh, because it's not winter and ice melts when it's not winter. Oh, that sucks. Okay, so I guess I guess it's going to be even less efficient than I thought. Okay. We'll have to come up with some way of preserving. Well, the packed ice would work there. So I guess we'll do packed ice in the near future. But water actually works too. Water will give us a certain amount of coldness. So there we go. I'm just going to seal that up. We never have to touch it. It's just always going to be generating RF for us, except I did forget to do one thing, if I remember correctly. And that is... Oh, yeah, I forgot to set the bottom of this to input. Okay, there we go. Now we're good. I'm getting ready to make some lanterns that are powered lanterns that require RF that will prevent mobs from spawning in a 32 block radius. So that's like, what, 2 chunks in every direction? So that is very useful. And what's really nice about it is that it outputs regular light, like glowstone, but it will prevent mobs from spawning in that entire area. So that way we don't have to have the whole area lit up. We can play around with lighting and stuff. In order to make these, we are going to have to set up our engineer's workbench. Ta-da! So the engineer's workbench is kind of a crafting table, and it requires a blueprint. And this particular recipe, if we look at the powered lantern, it requires this vacuum tube. And the vacuum tube requires the crafting components blueprint. And if we click on that, we can see that we can craft that like so. So not too bad. So we stick that in there, and then we can see the different things that we can make. So we are going to need, actually, we should be able to JEI. Oh, we can't. So it's glass, nickel, plate, redstone, and a copper wire. So glass, a nickel plate, redstone, and a copper wire. So to get the nickel plate, we just do that, and that gets us our nickel plate. And then we'll do the same thing with copper in order to get a copper plate that we can then cut into a wire. Oh, that is fish. There we go. So now you can see we get our 3 vacuum tubes. Now we have just enough to make 9 powered lanterns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run power lines throughout this entire like block around here, and probably toward my house too. And what we can do is we have these wooden posts, and if we hit them with our wrench, it's going to give us this little guy, which we can put things on. We can place things on, and what I'm going to place on them are relays. And then I'm going to put the lamp there. Now the lamp can actually act as a relay. So we can have multiple wires going into it, and we can pretty much use it as a relay. However, I like to have the relays on here mostly for aesthetics, because the lamps I put every couple of posts because they have the 32 block radius. We don't need to put them on every post. So I put them once every few posts, and I don't want the wires going zigzagging between the ones that have the lamps and the ones that don't. So I'm going to be using insulated wires. I have to make a lot more wires for these, and I think this is just far enough where I can go like that. I'm too far away. Okay, so I guess We have to move this thing 1 block closer. I must have... Oh, you know why? Because we're over that way. Because it counts every block. So, like, if we start here, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then 16 because we're bringing it out here. Okay, so this time, this should connect. And that lamp should light up. Hooray! So now there will be no mobs spawning within quite a distance of this lamp. Now actually, what I did here is the same thing as I did before, where I made this into that multi-block thing. So we have a connector over here that's connected here that's coming out of this LV capacitor. Let's see, I've got the top set to orange for output. So that's how we are going to be powering everything right from this. So our maximum, because we only have one connector here, is going to be 256 RF per tick, which should be more than enough to power those lanterns. It's much more peaceful here at night now. So I've got all the wiring done. I've got these powered lanterns every so often, and then where I don't have powered lanterns, I have these regular lanterns, which do not require power, but they're just light sources. They're a little cheaper. They just require some glowstone and some iron and stuff. And here, basically I put a power lantern on each of the corners, which is closer than they need to be, because we could actually put them 4 stems apart. Wait. Oh, actually I did here. Because each one is 16 blocks, and then that can go 32 blocks. So let's see, 1, 2. Yeah, we could actually have gone another length there. But now our streets are lined with wires and streetlights. Hooray! And we have very few mobs in the area. Very few. In fact, right now there's really nothing in the area, although this thing cuts off right behind my house. In fact, you can kind of see the line there where all the mobs are spawning, because they can't spawn over here. So I'm actually thinking of setting up another one back there. I do want to get power into my house, so I may just actually put one in my house or against my house or something like that. But this is going to save me some trouble, because my NPCs usually take care of the mobs around here, but they burn through bows like crazy, so I'm like replacing their freaking bows all the time. So no, I don't have to. Ah, that's better. I've got another one back there. So in the next episode, we are going to do some ore doubling with Immersive Engineering. We're going to set up a grinder and well, actually we're going to use vanilla furnaces, but we're going to use RF to power them instead of coal. So I hope you join me for that. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas or whatever, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And of course, if you did enjoy this, don't forget to click the like button and to join me next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.